The last couple of weeks, the inauguration speech, the executive orders, how has that left you feeling?
It's left me feeling pretty scared and uncertain. I didn't think so much was going to happen so fast and it would be so bad.
Ollie doesn't want to have to move again, but if he starts to feel unsafe, he's keeping his options open.
Where are you looking?
Mainly Canada because it's so close, and we've heard that the protections are better for people like us, or at least not so hostile. So Canada is probably the top of the list.
To qualify for asylum in Canada, you must prove a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group, which includes LGBTQ plus people.
Is it weird, to sort of be thinking about leaving America, to have considered that?
It's so dystopian. We're living the Handmaid's Tale. Like, how is this the United States of America? Words come out of my mouth, and in my head, I'm like, this can't be real. This can't, right? It's so bizarre. We're in the United States of America, the most powerful country in the world. And its citizens are looking at asylum in other countries.
All right, guys, we got to talk about some fascinating news here. Apparently, families with trans kids are fleeing the United States. As the new administration targets transgender individuals, families are protecting themselves in any way they can. Okay, so what we have here are trans individuals or families with trans kids. They're fleeing the United States of America. They're seeking asylum in other countries as if they are being persecuted in the United States of America. Now, I don't know. Maybe this is how they have interpreted the executive orders that have been signed by President Trump. We all know that President Trump has signed executive orders in order to stop biological males from competing against girls in sports.
I'm national correspondent Kayla Gaskins in Washington. The ripple effects of Donald Trump's ban on transgender athletes already making waves. Just one day after President Trump signed an executive order banning biological males from playing in women's sports,
you've been waiting a long time for this.
The NCAA barred transgender women from competing in women's college athletics.
The president's executive order has put tremendous public pressure on private organizations.
NCAA President Charlie Baker releasing a statement writing, President Trump's order provides a clear national standard. The move upsetting many in the trans community, like Schuler Baylor, the first openly transgender NCAA Division I swimmer.
This decision is cowardly, despicable, and crushes so many young athletes' dreams.
The U.S. Department of Education now investigating Title IX violations in athletics at San Jose State University, the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association, and the University of Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, 3 former UPenn swimmers on the team with transgender athlete Leah Thomas now suing the NCAA, UPenn, and the Ivy League to have Thomas's collegiate records wiped off the books. Thomas set several Ivy League women's swim records and won a D1 national championship in 2022.
I do think that there is going to be change and people are going to feel more comfortable speaking out and doing what is right and just making sure that the little girls who are coming up behind us are not left behind.
Critics argue data does not show transgender athletes have any advantage and that this pushback is unfair to the trans community.
There's no evidence that trans athletes have an advantage over anyone else in sports. Trans athletes play sports for the same reasons as anybody else, for our love of the game, to be a part of a team, to challenge ourselves.
He's also cracked down on so-called gender-affirming care for children.
Multiple hospitals across the nation, they have paused now gender-affirming care for minors, and that's because of an executive order by President Trump.
The order restricts access and cuts federal funding for such care. Today, New York's Brittany Miller spoke with rights groups concerned about the change.
Getting gender-affirming care in New York may have just gotten a little harder for young people.
We have gotten messages from dozens of trans patients at both NYU Langone and Mount Sinai to say that their appointments for gender-affirming care have been canceled.
Councilmember Tiffany Caban represents the 22nd District and is the co-chair of the LGBTQIA+ caucus. She issued a press release on this Sunday saying medical providers are being intimidated by President Donald Trump.
Don't obey in advance. You took an oath to do no harm, and denying access to gender-affirming care is the definition of doing harm.
Pointing to an executive order signed by President Trump just last week, it targets gender-affirming care for transgender people under 19. saying the U.S. government, quote, will not fund or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another, end quote, using words like mutilation, maiming, and sterilizing.
What they're saying with these executive orders is they don't just want to take our rights away, they want to eradicate trans people.
According to the Williams Institute, more than 1.6 million people identify as transgender in the U.S., and among those 13 to 17 years old, 1.4% are trans.
We know statistically trans people, especially trans women of color, are murdered at an elevated rate. We know that trans kids have a higher rate of suicide and suicidal ideation.
Advocates say the impact on mental health could be dangerous. Back in 2023, New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed a bill to protect gender-affirming care.
In order for us to remain a safe haven, we need medical institutions like Langone to fulfill that oath and that promise to heal and serve this community.
Caban worries this move is just the beginning.
Their care and their rights are being stripped away, and yours could very well be next. So we are all in this together.
In Kips Bay, Brittany.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that. Apparently the stress associated with these executive orders are causing transgender individuals to flee the United States of America. Okay, they're going to other countries to seek asylum. Canada, Europe, and they need help deciding which country to go to. Okay, so again, I find this to be a fascinating story that you have Americans fleeing over these executive orders from President Trump. But let's listen and learn more about why that may be the case here. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Hey, my name's Max. If you've been following along, I am a transgender man that is preparing to flee the United States. Today I want to talk about Spain, which is my #1 option for where I would go to. If you could please follow me. I am very close to getting into the TikTok Creators Fund. I just need more followers. I have about 7,500 and I need 10,000. Any of the money that I get from views or that Creators Fund goes towards me fleeing. There are many reasons why.
So apparently there's a creative fund for TikTok, and this individual needs money, right? So they're asking for money in order to flee the United States of America. Now, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of individuals who probably would be more than happy to chip in, right? To chip in and to say, hey, you know what? If it makes you feel safer to live in another country, it is what it is, okay? You know, you can make that a reality. You can make that a reality.
Is my #1 option, and I really hope that this video reaches people in Spain. That would be incredible, so that I could get more insights. The #1 reason being that I am fleeing with a family that has a trans kid. And so that kid is going to need to have access to healthcare, and specifically gender-affirming care. And Spain has really good gender-affirming care. I'm also going to need healthcare because of needing to be on hormones. I'm also choosing Spain because I hear transportation there is really good, and I'm not going to have a car. The reason I'm thinking Europe in general is because once you get an EU passport, it is incredibly easy to travel to other European countries. I know a lot of countries are starting to lean more right, and I want to be able to travel if need be, if I need to flee a second time, which I really hope doesn't happen. The places that I've heard are the most trans-friendly are going to be Barcelona, Madrid, and Valencia. I am specifically looking at Valencia. So I would love to hear any insights that Spanish people have about these cities. Something that I have heard from a lot of my viewers that are living in Spain is that a lot of apartments don't have AC, so just a heads up. Since I'm a therapist, I would be attempting to get a digital nomad visa while still providing therapy for clients in the US in the state that I have my license active in. However, if things get worse, you can claim asylum as a transgender person. They do have gender identity specific asylum processes. I have been advised that it is smarter to first apply for the tourist visa, and then once you actually get to Spain, then apply for either the digital nomad visa or claim asylum or whatever visa options you're looking into. Hey.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, hey, if this individual feels as if leaving the United States of America, as a therapist, by the way, a therapist, if a therapist here, this therapist needs to leave the United States of America in order to have a good life, It is what it is. Who am I to say? Who am I to say stay? Who am I to tell him to stay? Right? I would be a bad person to say nah. Stay here in America where all these laws, they're so transphobic. Right? I don't want you to live in a life of stress, right? I don't want you to live like that. And there's nothing I can do about it at this point. There's nothing we can do about it. So instead of living your life, you know, basically in fear, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea to consider, you know, maybe going to a country where you can live your life happily, right? Like this individual. You know, I don't think this is necessarily a terrible idea. I don't, you know? And I'm not saying leave, okay? That's not what I'm saying. But if you're saying that you can't stay here in the United States of America because you're afraid due to these executive orders, which I totally understand, I get it completely, and you got to go live somewhere else, you got to go seek asylum in another country, who am I? I would be a cruel person to tell you to stay, right? So I'm not saying leave, but I also don't want to be a bad person and tell you to stay, even though I really don't feel as if President Trump and his executive orders really pose any type of real physical threat of harm to trans people, right? I believe that transgender individuals in this country have the same rights as everybody else. So I'm not entirely sure what the threat is, okay, that, you know, these people are upset about. But if they feel as if it's not safe to live in this country, and if they want to go live somewhere else, hey, you know, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. And I hope they find happiness, right? I hope that anybody that decides to leave the United States of America because they don't feel like it's safe to live here due to these laws, hey, I only can wish the best for you, right? I really want you to find your happiness. Find your happiness, okay? You got one life to live. And you might as well do so, again, happily. So, hey, I mean, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.